welcome to the show. Here are 10 of the best Assassin's Creed games. Set in the late 1700s, AC Liberation introduces us to the first female lead protagonist of the series. Originally released for the PlayStation Vita, at the time it was truly impressive to see a fully fledged AC title running on a handheld. And although the game will not win any rewards for its story, it more than makes up for it by introducing some new mechanics into the series that heavily tied into the social stealth aspect of the franchise. Evelyn has 3 basic outfits to choose from, the first being the ladies outfit that lowers your notoriety, as well as granting you the ability to seduce guards in order to make a distraction. The second being the slaves outfit that helps you blend in whilst freeing captives, and finally the assassin's outfit that, as you would expect, grants you the most mobility in weapons. With the game now widely available on several platforms, there's never been a better time to jump into one of the most unique AC experiences out there. If you've been following the show for a while now, you'll probably already know I'm not the biggest fan of Syndicate. The escapades of Evie and Jacob Fry just never appealed to me and came off more like some strange psychedelic episode of EastEnders. In all seriousness though, Syndicate does have some redeeming qualities, mainly the progression of the modern day story that finally saw something meaningful and interesting transpire. From a gameplay perspective though, things get, shall we say, a little interesting. Traversing the world has never been easier thanks to the zipline that in all honesty takes a lot of the fun out of the free running aspect of the game. Combat wise, everything is a bit of a mess. All the style and grace of previous games is replaced with some sort of do a 100 hit combo to win system that just sucks any and all realism out of the game. As a longtime fan of the series, I was hugely disappointed with Syndicate and can only recommend it for the few things that it does get right. Taking place during the French Revolution, Unity introduces us to the story of Arnaud and Elise, an assassin and Templar brought together by circumstances that would forever define their lives. Now let's get this out of the way. Upon its release, Unity was a mess, but going back to it now after all of this time, it is clearly the better AC experience out of the 2 currently available for the consoles. What impressed me most about Unity was the location. The level of detail depicted is truly exceptional, and being able to scale the many landmarks scattered throughout the city was one of the highlights of the experience. In terms of gameplay, a few aspects were expanded upon, mainly the way in which free running works, with the addition of a parkour down button that really helped speed up the process. A new stealth mechanic and covering system was also implemented to varying degrees of success. One of the aspects of Unity that really lets it down is the complete lack of a cohesive modern day section. Instead, most of the information is spread throughout the game in the form of text known as Assassin Intel. After Black Flag introduced so many new intriguing plotlines, it was a real shame to see none of it pursued in a meaningful way. AC Rogue is a sort of hidden gem of the franchise. Released in line with Unity, it's easy to see why, as it kind of landed under the radar. What makes Rogue so unique is the story that it tells. Instead of taking up the role of an assassin, you are instead placed into the boots of Shay Cormac. After an event that makes him question his allegiance to the Assassin Order, he is ushered into the life of a Templar and vows to bring a stop to the Assassins. The story is the highlight of the game and one of the best in the franchise to date, albeit with a few plot holes that arise due to the events that occur. But when it comes to gameplay, Rogue takes many cues from Black Flag. Again, the naval combat makes a prominent return as you travel around the Atlantic Ocean and the various locations that make up the game's world. Due to Shay being a Templar, he is also constantly under the threat of being attacked by assassins. Thanks to this aspect of the game, a sort of tension is felt throughout the entire adventure. A lot was riding on AC3 after the events depicted in the final part of Ezio's trilogy Revelations. The game introduced us to Connor, who was drawn into the conflict between the Assassins and Templars due to his village being destroyed. After experiencing an encounter with the elusive Juno, Connor is compelled to push forward and fight for the freedom of his people. Now there are many issues with Connor as a character. The time we get with the assassin during the main story does not do much to flesh out his character, and as a result he suffers because of it. Instead, for some bizarre reason, a lot of Connor's development is included in the optional homestead missions that are scattered throughout the game's environment. I feel completing these missions really does add an extra layer to his personality. Gameplay wise, AC3 mixed up the usual formula and took us to the American Revolution frontier, gone with the densely populated cities in favour of a more open and wild approach to the environments. Because of this, new aspects such as hunting and crafting were introduced to the franchise, as well as incredible naval missions, which helped AC3 feel like something fresh and new. After the huge success of Assassin's Creed 2, a planned DLC for the game was turned into a full release titled Brotherhood. Picking up right where the previous game had left off, we once again took the role of Ezio as he came to terms with the implications of the events that had transpired. Taking place in Rome, it's your job to rebuild the city as well as the Brotherhood as you take the fight to the Borgia's home turf. Many new mechanics were crafted for the game, such as now having the ability to call on your assassin recruits to help you out of tight situations. As well as being responsible for your assassins, the game also hugely expands upon the economy system introduced in number 2. Now, instead of just renovating a villa, the concept is blown up to accommodate the entire city of Rome, with each renovation bringing with it noticeable changes to the environment, ultimately resulting in one of the most beautifully crafted cities in the series to date. After the events of AC3, many fans wondered where Ubisoft could take the series next. The franchise's main character had been killed off and a huge new threat had appeared in the form of Juno being released. Now, I love Black Flag. I think it is a hugely rewarding experience, but at the same time, from the perspective of an AC fan, I did not really care for the pirate motif. And to be honest, I feel like it detracts from the overall atmosphere of the series, especially when taking into account the modern day story that feels like a walking simulator through Hipsterville. On the plus side though, there are some very intriguing and mysterious new aspects introduced by the game, such as the concept of the sages, as well as some more information about the early development of the animus. But Black Flag was clearly the beginning of the end for the modern day aspect of the franchise. With that out of the way though, there are so many things that Black Flag gets right. The naval aspect makes exploring the world an absolute joy, and with the amount of collectibles, crafting options and side missions available, it's truly hard to run out of things to do. Released in 2007, the first Assassin's Creed title follows the life of Altair, an assassin stripped of his rank due to his negligence compromising the Brotherhood's safety. This plays into how the game is structured, as throughout the experience you must gain back your abilities by completing the assassinations available to you, each time rewarding you with a new weapon or fighting technique that will eventually see all of your skills return to you. Many people had issues with the first game due to it only including a handful of mission types. Admittedly, it can become quite repetitive making your way through the story, but thankfully a director's cut version of the game is available which manages to include a few extra mission types that mix it up. AC1 was clearly a stepping stone for the franchise. It introduced us to a truly mysterious world and story, and would go on to influence the formula of the various sequels that came out after. The first installment managed to captivate me and ensure my continued interest in the series, and for that reason alone I highly recommend going back and checking this one out. Assassin's Creed Revelations set out to answer all of the questions raised up until this point in the series. Admittedly, some of the more finer story details being hidden away behind DLC did not help the experience, but what is presented throughout the duration of the game is nothing short of incredible. The way in which Altair, Ezio's and Desmond's narratives align is truly one of the most impressive pieces of storytelling I have ever seen. Taking a step away from the Italian Renaissance, Revelations sees Ezio travelling to Constantinople in order to learn more about the legendary Altair and his motivations that led him to dedicate his life to the Creed. A few new design changes managed to mix up the gameplay, mainly in the form of the hook blade, which in my opinion was a breath of fresh air and helped bring some variety to the parkour element of exploration. Although not without its faults, the inclusion of a tower defense minigame was something completely out of the blue, and thankfully an aspect that has never returned to the series. Overall, Revelations is one of the best entries in the franchise. There is no game in the franchise more deserving of the #1 spot. AC2 managed to build upon the foundations introduced in the first installment and execute them with such style and finesse that the second outing would go on to become the blueprint for the franchise going forward. Taking place a few hundred years after the events of the first AC, we are introduced to our assassin Ezio Auditore, an Italian youth living his life during the Renaissance. After his family are unrightfully slaughtered, Ezio is set on the path of revenge and vows to track down his family's killers. Dragged into a conspiracy involving the Templars, throughout the game it is your job to unravel their plans and piece together the many mysteries that make up the narrative. And that is the main focus of my praise for AC2, narrative. The game literally turns everything upside down as the story threads are tied up in one of the most impactful endings I have ever experienced in a game.